The mahogany desk, imported from Italy, worth more than most people's cars, sat between us like a chasm. 3:17 p.m. Tuesday. My corner office at Merrick Associates, the boutique consulting firm I'd built from nothing. Or so I'd thought. Sign here, Natalie. David tapped the divorce papers with his Montblanc pen, the same pen I'd given him for closing our first $1 million deal. My lawyer says you'll get 15%. That's generous, considering you never really contributed to the business side. I stared at the papers. My hands, rough from scrubbing dishes in our industrial loft kitchen, rested in my lap. The overhead lights caught the chip in my wedding ring. White gold, modest, chosen when we had nothing. David. Amber's voice dripped from the leather chair where she perched, legs crossed. 26 years old. MBA from Wharton. His strategic hire, from 6 months ago. We have the investor meeting at 4. Can we speed this up? She examined her nails. Gel manicure, champagne pink, flawless. Her Hermes bag sat on the credenza, next to a framed photo David had already replaced. Used to be our wedding picture. Now it was him and Amber at some charity gala. I said nothing. Natalie. David's voice carried that edge of impatience I'd heard increasingly over the past year. Don't make this difficult. You'll keep the loft, get a fair settlement. But the company is mine. You understand that, right? Yours, I thought. But let me take you back. Let me show you how we got here. 8 months earlier, the coffee maker sputtered at 5:47 a.m., filling our loft with the smell of dark roast. I'd been up since 4, finishing the financial projections David needed for his pitch meeting. My laptop screen glowed in the pre-dawn darkness. Numbers cascaded down spreadsheets, revenue models, growth forecasts, market analysis. This was my language. Always had been. You're up early. David stumbled into the kitchen, hair disheveled. He kissed the top of my head absently, reaching for the coffee I'd already poured. Finished your deck. The numbers for the Chin account look strong. If you emphasize the cost savings in Q3, they'll bite. He scrolled through his phone, not looking at the laptop. Great. Thanks, babe. David. I waited until he looked up. The projections show we could scale faster if we brought in another partner. Someone with operations experience. I've been researching. We've been through this. He set down his coffee. I'm the face of Merrick Associates. That's what clients want. They don't want back office number crunchers in the pitch meetings. I have an MBA from Stanford, David. Same as you. And you use it brilliantly. Behind the scenes. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Why fix what's working? I close deals. You make sure the math adds up. Perfect partnership. He left for the gym. I sat in the quiet loft, surrounded by spreadsheets he'd never opened, watching the sun rise over a city that thought David Merrick was a self-made genius. 3 months before everyone, this is Amber Chan. David stood at the head of our conference room, hand on the shoulder of a woman in a designer suit. She's joining us as VP of Strategy. Wharton grad, 5 years at McKinsey. She's going to help take us to the next level. I smiled from my seat at the corner of the table, the one I always took, close enough to contribute, far enough to stay invisible. Amber, this is the team. And that's Natalie, my wife. She handles our financial modeling. Financial modeling. Amber's handshake was firm, professional. Her eyes swept over me, taking in my J.Crew blouse, my drugstore makeup, my tired smile. How nice. David says you've been a wonderful support system. Support system. The first client dinner where David introduced Amber as my new partner was 2 weeks later. I stayed home, finishing the quarterly reports he'd need for the board meeting he'd scheduled. The second dinner was a week after that. Then twice a week. Then they started working late. Then Saturday mornings. Then Sunday afternoons. Amber just thinks differently. David explained one night, coming home at 11 p.m. smelling of expensive scotch. She's strategic. Visionary. She sees the bigger picture. What picture am I seeing? I asked quietly. The numbers, Nat. That's your strength. Let me handle the vision. I found the hotel receipt 3 weeks ago. The Ritz-Carlton. Presidential suite. Charged to the company card. I said nothing. Just took a photo. Sent it to my phone. Added it to the folder I'd been building. Last week David's mother called at 7:30 a.m. I was making breakfast, poached eggs, wheat toast, the routine we'd kept for 9 years. Natalie, honey. Margaret's voice was tight. I need you to know I had no part in this. When David told me yesterday, I was horrified. My hand stilled on the spatula. Told you what? About the divorce. About that woman. She paused. I told him he was making the biggest mistake of his life. That you were the best thing that ever happened to him. He said I didn't understand business. Business, I repeated. He's my son, but he's wrong. So wrong. Her voice cracked. You've been nothing but good to him. To us. We talked for 40 minutes. Before we hung up, she said something that settled into my chest like a key turning in a lock. You know what's funny, Natalie? David's father always said the same thing. That he was the ideas man, that I just did the bookkeeping. Right up until I had to show him that bookkeeping was the only thing keeping his company solvent. She laughed, brittle. Men forget. They forget what you built while they were busy taking credit. Which brings us to now, to this moment, to David's office with its city views and its lies. Natalie. He pushed the papers closer. Sign, please. We both know you're not cut out for this world. Go find something that makes you happy. Teaching, maybe. You always liked explaining things. Amber checked her watch. Cartier, probably a gift. David, the investors. My phone vibrated. I glanced at the screen. Robert Castellano. The name would mean nothing to them. To me, it meant everything. I answered. Mr. Castellano. Ms. Merrick. His voice was crisp, efficient. The board meeting convenes in 10 minutes. Your presence is required. The car is waiting on 5th. I'll be right down. I hung up. The office was very quiet. David stared. Who was that? My attorney. I stood, smoothing my sensible skirt. I have a meeting. We'll have to reschedule. Reschedule. Amber's voice went shrill. Do you have any idea how busy David is? You don't just. Actually, I do. I collected my thrift store purse. See, that's the thing about divorce, Amber. Community property states are very specific about asset division. David's face went pale. Natalie, what are you talking about? I'm talking about Merrick Associates. 50% of which belongs to me. I smiled. It felt strange, that smile. Like finding a muscle I'd forgotten I had. The other 50%? Well, that's where things get interesting. The door opened. David's secretary, Karen, looked flustered. Mr. Merrick, there are people here from. She stopped, looking at me. Ms. Merrick, Mr. Castellano's team is here. They're ready to escort you to the board meeting. Board meeting? David's voice cracked. What board meeting? I didn't call a board meeting. No, I said softly. I did. The color drained from David's face. You can't call a board meeting. You're not. You don't have the authority. Ms. Merrick holds 49% of Merrick Associates through the operating agreement filed 9 years ago. Robert Castellano stood in the doorway, 63 years old in a Brooks Brothers suit, carrying a leather briefcase that had seen 30 years of courtroom battles. As of this morning, she also holds controlling interest in the preferred shares issued to. He consulted his tablet. The Castellano Family Trust. David grabbed the edge of his desk. That's not possible. The Castellano Trust owns 20%. They've been silent partners since we started. They never even attend meetings. Attended? I corrected quietly. Past tense. Mr. Castellano sold his shares to me at 9 a.m. this morning. For fair market value, of course. Robert smiled. It was not a kind smile. My daughter's college roommate was Natalie Chun. Stanford, class of 2015. I've known this young woman for 14 years, David. When she called me 6 months ago with concerns about financial irregularities in the company she co-founded, I paid attention. Financial? David's voice strangled. There are no irregularities. Our books are clean. Your books are immaculate, I said. I should know. I keep them. But the expense reports? The vendor contracts? The hotel receipts charged to the company for your personal entertainment. I looked at Amber. The salary we're paying our VP of strategy, $240,000 for someone with your experience level. That's about $90,000 over market rate. Strange, isn't it? Amber's face flushed crimson. You have no idea what I bring to this company. I have extensive idea. I've been tracking every metric since he started. Revenue per client meeting, down 18%. Close rate, down 22%. Client retention, down 15%. I pulled out my phone, pulled up a spreadsheet. But hotel expenses? Up 300%. Dinner charges? Up 400%. Premium liquor purchases? Up 600%. Those are business expenses. David's voice rose. Entertainment is part of the job. Entertainment at the Ritz-Carlton Presidential Suite? 18 times in 3 months. I met his eyes. I'd love to hear you explain that to the IRS. Or to the clients whose money we manage, who trust us with their financial futures while you're billing luxury hotels to the company card. The room went very quiet. Robert cleared his throat. The board meeting begins in 8 minutes. Ms. Merrick, shall we? Board meeting for what? Amber found her voice. You can't just, David owns this company. He built it. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows what David told them, Robert said. The reality, which I've spent 6 months verifying through documentation that Ms. Merrick meticulously preserved, is somewhat different. He opened his briefcase, pulled out a folder 3 inches thick. Merrick Associates was founded 9 years ago with $80,000 in capital. $40,000 from David Merrick's inheritance. $40,000 from Natalie Merrick's signing bonus from her previous position at Goldman Sachs. He set down the first document. The operating agreement, filed with the state, shows equal partnership. 50-50. That was just paperwork, David said desperately. For tax purposes. Everyone knows I run this company. Tax fraud. Robert made a note. Interesting defense. Let's continue. All client acquisition for the first 4 years, documented in these emails, which Ms. Merrick forwarded to herself from the company's server, came through Natalie's Stanford network. The Chun family connections in tech. The contacts she built at Goldman. He set down another stack of papers. The financial models that won your 3 biggest accounts? Natalie's work. The proprietary algorithm you licensed to smaller consulting firms? Natalie's code. The investment strategy that tripled your assets under management? Natalie's. Research. Robert looked at David. What exactly did you contribute, Mr. Merrick? Besides charm and a willingness to take credit? This is insane. David turned to me. Natalie, tell them. Tell them I built this. I've always said what you wanted to hear. My voice was steady. Because I loved you. Because I thought we were partners. Because every time I tried to claim credit, you explained why it was better for the brand if you were the face of the company. It was better. Look at our growth. Our growth plateaued 18 months ago. The same time you started spending more time with Amber than with actual client work. I pulled up another spreadsheet. I've been running projections. If we'd invested those hotel expenses into the marketing budget I proposed, we'd have 23% more revenue. If we'd hired the operations manager I suggested instead of a VP of strategy we didn't need, our profit margin would be 12 points higher. Amber stood abruptly. I don't have to listen to this. David, tell her, sit down, Ms. Chun. Robert's voice cut like a blade. You're named in the shareholder complaint as a potential co-defendant in the misappropriation lawsuit. You'll want to hear the terms being discussed. She sat. Her hands shook. The board meeting, Robert continued, will address 3 items. First, the removal of David Merrick as CEO, effective immediately, for gross mismanagement and misuse of company funds. Second, the installation of Natalie Merrick as sole CEO and managing partner. Third, the termination of Amber Chin's employment for violation of company ethics policies. You can't do this. David's voice cracked. I'll fight you. I'll sue. You'll lose. I said it quietly. I have 9 years of documentation, David. Every email, every financial model, every client pitch I wrote that you presented as yours. Every late night I spent fixing your mistakes while you took investors to dinner. Every time you introduced me as my wife who helps with the numbers while I was the only reason we had numbers worth discussing. I stood, picked up my purse. The divorce papers you want me to sign? They're void. I had my lawyer file an alternative agreement this morning. Community property division means I get half of everything. But since I now control 69% of the company through my original shares plus the Castellano purchase, everything is a bit different than you thought. 69%, David whispered. That means I own the company. You work for me. Or rather, you did. Until about 3 minutes ago, when the board voted to remove you. The board hasn't met yet. Electronic vote. Completed at 3:45 p.m. The Castellano Trust, now mine, voted yes. My shares voted yes. The 2 junior partners you've been ignoring for 3 years? They voted yes enthusiastically. I checked my phone. Actually, Marcus sent a text. About damn time. His words, not mine. Amber made a sound like a wounded animal. My contract will be honored through its termination date, which is today. Your severance package is the standard 2 weeks, calculated at the market rate for your position. Not the inflated salary David approved, minus the cost of hotel expenses and meals that violated company policy. Robert pulled out another document. That comes to approximately $8,000. Before taxes. $8,000. Her voice pitched into a shriek. I gave up a position at McKinsey for this. You gave up a position at McKinsey to sleep with a married man and pretend to be a strategic genius. I met her eyes. I've read your decks, Amber. They're undergraduate level. Pretty slides, no substance. Every strategic insight you presented, I can show you the Harvard Business Review article you plagiarized it from. Her mouth opened. Closed. No sound came out. David slumped into his chair. Natalie, please. We can work this out. The marriage, I made a mistake. You made many mistakes. But the biggest one. I moved toward the door. You forgot that I'm not just the woman who made your coffee and fixed your grammar and stayed quiet at dinner parties. I'm Natalie Chun. Stanford MBA, top 5%. Former Goldman Sachs analyst. The woman who built this company while you took credit. Robert held the door open. Ms. Merrick, your office is ready. My office? The one on the 42nd floor. Porter Suite. The one you've been paying rent on, but Mr. Merrick claimed for himself. He smiled. It's being prepared now. Your name is going on the door. Actually, it's already on the door. It was always supposed to be there. I looked back at David one last time. He sat at the desk I'd chosen, in the office I'd designed, surrounded by the success I'd built. You can clean out your desk by 5 p.m. Security will escort you from the building. My voice didn't shake, didn't waver. Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., I'm meeting with every client personally. I'll be explaining the leadership transition. I suspect they'll be relieved to finally meet the person who's actually been managing their money. They'll never accept you, David said desperately. They know me. Trust me. You're just the reason they made money for 9 years straight. I finished. I think they'll manage. The elevator chimed. The doors opened. Oh, and David, that 15% you offered me in the divorce. I stepped inside. My lawyer countered. You'll be getting 25% of the marital assets. I'm keeping the company, the loft, and the Audi. You're welcome to the Toyota and the furniture. 25. That's not even half. The company's assets aren't marital property. They're mine. 94% of our personal wealth was built through my income and my work. You get 25% of what's left. The elevator doors began to close. My lawyer called it generous. I called it closure. The last thing I saw was David's face, pale and stricken, before the door sealed shut and carried me up to my real office. The 42nd floor corner suite had floor-to-ceiling windows facing east toward the harbor. Morning light, unobstructed. The desk was mahogany, real mahogany, not the veneer David had chosen. The nameplate gleamed. Natalie Chun Merrick, CEO and managing partner. It was 4:37 p.m. The board meeting had taken 45 minutes. The vote was unanimous. I stood at the window, watching the city spread below. 9 years ago, David and I had stood in an empty office space 3 floors down, dreaming about what we'd built. I'd built it. He'd just never noticed. My phone rang. Margaret, David's mother. Natalie, sweetheart. I just heard. Are you all right? I'm good, Margaret. Really good. Good. Her voice was fierce. He deserved this. What he did to you. What he did with that woman. I'm ashamed of him. You don't have to be ashamed. You're not responsible for his choices. No, but I enabled them. All those years, telling him how brilliant he was, how special. His father did the same thing. We raised him to think his charm was enough. She paused. You, though? You earned everything through work. Through intelligence. Through showing up every single day and doing what needed to be done. We talked until 5. She asked if we could still have lunch on Thursdays, our tradition for 7 years. Always, I said. You're my family, Margaret. That doesn't change. After we hung up, I turned to my computer, opened the client files, began drafting the emails I'd send tomorrow, introducing myself properly. Not as David's wife. Not as the back office support. As their actual financial manager, the person who'd been making the decisions that grew their wealth. At 5:47 p.m., Robert knocked on my door frame. Security reports Mr. Merrick has left the building. Ms. Chun left shortly after. They both cleared out their personal items. Any issues? Mr. Merrick asked to speak with you. Security reminded him he's no longer employed here and needs to schedule an appointment through your assistant if he wishes to communicate. Robert's smile was dry. He didn't schedule an appointment. Good. Robert set a folder on my desk. Divorce papers. I took the liberty of having David served as he exited. His attorney has 30 days to respond, but given the documentation we have, the misappropriation, the ethics violations, the clear paper trail showing your contributions, I expect he'll accept our terms. The alternative is a very public lawsuit he'll lose. I opened the folder. The settlement was clean, fair, and weighted entirely in my favor. I kept what I'd built. He kept what he'd earned, which, it turned out, was very little. There's one more thing. Robert pulled out another document. The Castellano Trust sale. My family is out. But I wanted you to know, we never sold to David because we didn't trust him. We sold to you because we did. You've tripled our investment in 9 years. Your strategic planning is exceptional. Your financial modeling is the best I've seen in 40 years of business. He extended his hand. It's been an honor, Natalie. Watching you build this, protect this, and now claim this. Your parents would be very proud. My parents. I thought of them. Both academics, both brilliant, both gone 5 years now. They'd never lived to see the company grow. But they taught me everything that mattered. Work speaks louder than charm. Integrity outlasts charisma, and quiet competence eventually becomes undeniable. 6 months later, the office Christmas party filled the 42nd floor. I'd expanded, hired 4 new analysts, promoted the 2 junior partners David had ignored, brought in an ethics consultant to rebuild our culture. Revenue was up 37%. Client retention was at 98%, the highest in our sector. We'd won 3 industry awards. The business press called it a remarkable turnaround. I called it finally doing things right. Natalie, Marcus, now VP of Client Relations, approached with a glass of champagne. There's someone here to see you. Says it's personal. I told him. You were busy, but it's fine, Marcus. I'll handle it. David stood near the elevator, uncomfortable in a suit that looked cheaper than what he used to wear. 6 months had aged him. Gray at his temples, lines around his mouth. Natalie, thank you for seeing me. You have 5 minutes. I'm working at Reynolds Consulting now. Junior partner. He stopped. It's humbling. Starting over. Being the one who takes orders instead of giving them. Good, I said simply. I came to apologize. Really apologize. Not for the affair, though that was, God, that was inexcusable. But for everything else. For taking credit. For minimizing you. For making you invisible while I played the genius. His voice cracked. You built this. You always built this. I was just the front man who convinced himself he was essential. I looked at him. Saw the man I'd loved for 14 years. Saw what remained when you stripped away the arrogance, the entitlement, the comfortable lies. Apology accepted, I said. Now leave. You're not welcome here. I know. He met my eyes. I just wanted you to know. I see it now. What I had. What I threw away. Not the company. You. The person you are. The mind you have. The strength, David. I cut him off. I appreciate this. Truly. But I've moved on. You should too. He nodded. Turned to leave. At the elevator, he paused. For what it's worth. Everyone knows now. Every client I pitch to, every consultant I network with, they all know Natalie Chin built Merrick Associates. That you were the genius, and I was just the guy who took credit. He smiled bitter. Turns out being a cautionary tale is its own kind of punishment. The elevator doors closed on his face. I returned to the party. To my team, my clients, my company. The room buzzed with conversation, laughter, the sound of success earned through actual work. Margaret found me near the windows. Was that David? It was. He apologized. Did it feel good? I considered. It felt complete. Like closing a chapter one should have closed years ago. She squeezed my hand. You know what feels even better than revenge, Natalie? Building something that outlasts the people who underestimated you. I looked around the room. At the analysts I'd hired from diverse backgrounds, not just Ivy League networks. At the junior partners I promoted based on merit, not charm. At the clients who'd stayed because the results spoke for themselves. This wasn't just a company anymore. It was proof. Proof that quiet competence wins. That doing the work matters more than taking credit. That the person everyone overlooks might be the one holding everything together. Speech, someone called out. The boss should say something. I moved to the center of the room. 43 people looked at me, employees, clients, partners. 6 months ago, most of them had barely known my name. I'll keep this brief, I said. This year taught me something important. You can be underestimated for years, overlooked, dismissed. You can be the person in the corner doing the actual work while someone else takes the applause. And it will hurt. It will make you feel small and invisible and raw. The room was silent. But here's the truth. The work speaks. Eventually, always, the work speaks. You can't fake results forever. You can't charm your way past actual incompetence. And the person who shows up every day, who does what needs doing, who builds instead of performing, that person wins. I raise my glass. So here's to the overlooked, the underestimated, the quiet ones doing the real work. Your time comes. And when it does, no one can take it from you, because you earned it. The applause was thunderous. Later, standing at the window as the party wound down, I thought about the woman I'd been 8 months ago, making coffee at dawn, accepting crumbs, believing that staying small was the price of love. She was gone now, not erased, transformed. All that patience, all that quiet strength, all those years of being underestimated had taught me something invaluable. Power isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the woman in the corner, keeping perfect records, building unshakable foundations, waiting for the exact right moment to show everyone what she's been holding all along. David thought I had no power. He was wrong. I had all of it. I'd always had it. I just finally decided to use it. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Ms. Merrick, this is Jennifer Hartwell from Stanford Business Review. We're doing a feature on women rebuilding companies after partnerships dissolve. Would you be interested in being interviewed? I smiled. Typed back. I'd be honored. Let's talk. The city glowed below. 42 floors up, the world looked vast and full of possibility. I'd spent 9 years being invisible, being quiet, being the support system while someone else took center stage. Now I spent my days being exactly who I'd always been. Just visible. Just undeniable. Just mine. The revenge wasn't in David's downfall, though justice had its own satisfaction. It was in this. I'd taken everything he'd tried to steal and built it into something he could never touch. Something that bore my name, my vision, my truth. He'd wanted a silent partner. Someone to do the work while he collected the glory. Instead, he got a reminder that silence isn't weakness. It's just power, waiting for the right moment to speak. And when it spoke, the whole world listened.